So you've been playing Workers and Resources Soviet Republic and you've been having tons of fun, but you keep running into things like this, or this, or this. Then stick around, I will give you my top tips to up your rail game in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. Hi guys, I'm ExactChaos and today I'm going to talk about how you can up your rail game in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. So you're starting out with trains and you're kind of wondering how it works and the basics of it. So let's talk about a few things. So let's say you want to just move your first train from one station to another station. It's quite simple. You build two stations, you connect them with some rail, and you get a train to go and schedule to do the track, and you let it go. There it goes. There it goes. Back and forth between these two, no problem. Only a single line is required. No signals, nothing of that type. It just goes back and forth, no problems. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is you want to start adding additional trains to this because you need more capacity, or you want different routes, or all kinds of things like that. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to just maintain your single line. That's two directions on a single line. But what you do is you start by adding a little bypass loop in the middle. Okay, so it's something very simple like that. Okay, without signals, the train is not going to know where it needs to go. It's just going to continue the shortest route that it's using. So now what we want to do is we wanted to use the bottom track here to go towards this station here. So basically right-hand drive. So you put a signal in there. You click it once, twice to get to the direction that you want, and you also put a signal on the other one. Otherwise, it can still bypass that thing in that direction. Okay, so now the lower track goes to the right, and the upper track goes to the left of the screen. Okay, as you can see, the train will now come here and move along the way as expected, and when it comes back, it'll go on the upper track. This basically makes these sections of tracks one way. So as you use the signal and its arrow indicates the direction of travel, and that makes those sections one-way tracks. So now you can quite comfortably go ahead and add an additional train to this. Now we've added our second train onto this. So now they're going here. Let me just switch this on so you can actually see the signals again. That one's red. That one's red. So you ask, what's that? There's more than enough space for these two guys to bypass one another. Okay, so the reason is blocks. The way rail setups work is blocks. So there can only be one train per block. So the way you identify a block, I use a simple electricity analogy. If you touch a live wire in the location of where the train is, everywhere the electricity can conduct to with a direct connection is part of this block. So up until the point where it reaches a signal, of course. So if you touch a live wire over here, the electricity conducts to there, then it stops at a signal. It conducts all the way back, goes over here. There's a signal back there somewhere that it connects to. So that's all part of one block. But because there's connections over here, the electricity conducts all the way back to this signal. So this is part of that entire block. So this entire block over there. So now this guy can't get in here. It's got a red signal because it's this block is blocked. Funny enough, there's a train in this block, so another train can't enter it. So what you need to do is you need to add some more signals and separate your blocks a little bit. So if I do that, immediately you can see that one is opening up. Because it's cleared, that block cleared, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can do that in both directions. So if you do a little setup like this, you can quite comfortably operate multiple trains on a one-track line. And they will kind of balance out one another. It's not the most efficient way of doing it. And what you can also do is you can expand this by making sure that you can add room for more trains in here by adding additional signals in there, or doing additional bypass loops in different locations or at your stations and things like that. So that's quite an easy way for you to have a very basic network that actually works with signals. The next thing we're going to talk about is switches. So a switch is effectively a little area where trains can switch from the one track to the other track. Switches are only really useful if you want trains to be able to do multiple directions on a single track. So I'll quickly show you what we've got here in terms of signals. Over here we've got normal signals in both directions. So it effectively means that trains can go, both of these tracks are two-way tracks, so they can go on either one. And we've got basic signals only. We've got multiple blocks, so we've got the 5 blocks over here. That section of rail is a block. This section of rail is a block. This piece in the middle here together is a block. Why? Because all of these things touch one another. So the electric current touches all of these different pieces. So this entire section is a block. Then that piece of rail there is a block. And this piece of rail here is a block. So as you can see, I've got a train running back and forth between one station and another station. And it's quite comfortably taking the direct path over there back and forth on this two-way section because it can always clear all of the blocks. So now, let's say we add an additional train to the mix. So let me get this guy to start running. Okay, now we can see, okay, there's a bit of a problem here. That line there is blocked. This one here is blocked. Okay, but, okay, let's just switch on the signal so you can see them. Okay, you can see both of them are blocked. But, and this one is blocked obviously because we've got a train in there. But you can see this signal that this guy is going to get. So now you can see this guy is going to come on in here. Okay, no problems. Oh, but now there's a problem. Now it's blocked this signal because it wasn't actually able to understand that this actual section is blocked. And now you've got these trains all stuck together right over there. And now what do? Okay, in a case like this, I would just move them back to their original stations and redo the intersection. So how do you deal with that? Okay, it's simple. This is where chain signals come into being. So I'll just get them to go into their stations like that and pause. Okay, now chain signals works with switches. Why? Because it's an intelligent signal that looks to the next signal over. So if we make all of these chain signals, okay, there and there and there and there. Now you can see we've got some green signals, we've got some blue signals, we've got some red signals, and that's how chain signals basically work. So what they do is they indicate at this signal whether not only the block ahead, but also the upcoming signal is green. Okay, so the block ahead is available, okay, but the upcoming signal is red. So this signal is red. It will stop that train. It won't be allowed to enter this switch. Okay, the train from the other side though, and we'll let it run so we can see it, it's got a blue signal, which means that one of the directions is blocked, but the other one is open. So it can actually go through towards that direction of travel. Then this one opens up and it allows it to go in there. And what I'll do is I'll quickly activate this train over here also. And then we'll start seeing how nicely all of this works. So let's do that. We'll get our signals in place. So now you can see it blocks, it opens. This one can bypass. Then this is going to open. It's going to let it go over there. It starts to become a really intelligent little intersection that we've got going on over here. And they can move from the one platform to the other platform. This guy's got a line to go over there. This guy's got a line to go straight over there. It's really an intelligent setup, and you can really have a fair bit of capacity going on over there. But the important thing here with switches like this, where things are going in multiple directions, you want to make sure that you use chain signals. So the chain signal looks not only at the block ahead, but also at the next signal down. Now that you've got the basics, let's look at a few tips on how to improve your railways in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. Firstly, do it simple. I would suggest starting with a single track. If you're only looking to move workers to an industry area or something like this, just build a single track, dual direction, and have one train move back and forth. The capacity on a simple network like this can quite easily be expanded by just adding a simple bypass loop to allow two trains to pass one another. Next, make sure your blocks are physically big enough to accommodate the trains you are planning to use. If you're in doubt, make the blocks bigger than you expect. You don't want trains to get into places, then try and turn around and can't make use of the switch because it's too close. So always leave plenty of space so your trains can turn around and comfortably get into any switches. The same goes for any possible intersections anywhere. When not all your trains stop on all the stations at the line, it's probably about time to put in some bypasses. This passenger rail is picking up people over here, while this cargo train is trying to move through the station. So this is about the time where your capacity is such that you need to start putting in bypasses. A simple bypass like this helps that freight traffic doesn't need to go through your passenger rail, and passenger rail can continue once again once the freight is passed. The bypass can also effectively go into a double track or a single track situation and act as a passing loop all at the same time. Okay, so when you're using diesel trains and this starts happening, it means that actually they've run out of fuel. When trains start running out of fuel, they will go to the closest petrol station in the most direct path. If there is, however, a well-connected petrol station ahead of them, they will continue along the line until they actually get there. But alternatively, if it's behind them, you need to ensure that they can actually turn around to get there. So switches all along the way, if you're using diesel, is the most appropriate way to make sure that your trains can always go back to a petrol station. Because the petrol stations can cause funny things in the routing of these trains that you don't necessarily plan, like as you can see over here yet again. So he got here, but now the return route is on in this direction over here. So now that's the problem. Because this happens all the time, and it's very difficult to plan for every possible iteration of a route, I just try and go for electric trains as quickly as possible. So that would be my top tip. Move to electric trains as quickly as you can to avoid yourself a lot of pain and heartache with trains doing funny things to get to petrol stations. Next, I think it is very important to plan your network before you really start developing it. So let's say you've got a NATO or a border post over here that you want to do a lot of exports to. Some of your stuff is over here, some of your stuff is over there, some of your goods is over there. Then the good thing to do is then just to kind of say, well, I want a main line that runs around all of these things, but you don't necessarily want everything on the main line. Okay, so a main line is something like this, and a good starting point for a main line would be a border post. So as you can see over here, I've got a border post connected with lots of storage space for trains to wait to go and unload. The rest of this is just a double track sections all the way along the areas that we wanted to go, right? Not a lot of interaction with that, with that line. We've just got it running all the way. But so now we've got our steel mill over here, and we want to export steel. This is a branch line off of the main line. We're not using this line to transport the workers to the steel mill. Instead, we are saying, well, actually, the workers can make use of this little branch line. Okay, we pick up workers there and there. They go to the steel mill, and then on the way out, we've got this branch line, which is a completely separated line over here that goes back onto the main line, and that can take the steel all the way. And the same thing you want to do for all of your other branch lines. You really want to ensure that your main line has big and appropriate intersections to branch lines on them, and that you limit the number of intersections onto the main line as much as possible. So use branch lines wherever you can to do the hard work of moving people to workplaces and so on, and then use your main line to get the goods back to the border post. Okay, something that really floored me on this one and that took me some time to figure out is that planned tracks actually need signals as well. So here you can see all of this working really well, little bypass loop going on over here. So when I'm pausing the game, okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start planning out an extra little section. So let's say we're going to plan that out, and let's say we're not going to build it automatically. We're going to get our rail construction team to come and build this. So let's see. So I'm unpausing the game, and let's see what happens over here. At the moment, it still works. It's kind of in blueprint view, so it's a little funny. So there we go, and now it's actually blocking itself immediately. So the planned track over here is blocking this train into its own loop. This guy can't enter here because there's a train in this block. Okay, right there, because these are connected due to the planning. Okay, so top tip here is make sure that as you plan, you start installing the appropriate signals. Okay, so let's say that's one over there. Definitely going to be one over there. And as you see, immediately the planning has opened up all the right things to happen over here. So make sure that your planning and blocks is good enough as well. One of the things that I like to do, if I wanted to build the rails myself, I would actually pay for these little sections over here. So let's say we commission the construction of that. What I would do is, because now when the construction vehicle comes in here, it kind of blocks up the entire thing. So I tend to just pay for these little sections all the way beyond the intersection. So what I would do is I would typically pay for a little section like this as well, so that the vehicle can get out, and then I would get the rail and actually extend it basically from there. Okay, and I would let my teams go and build the rest of that where it's not going to impact our intersections over here. Now, my final and probably the most important tip when it comes to railways in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic is always save the game when you're going to start tweaking the railway connections, especially if you're working on switches or on signals, anything that can affect the current routing of the trains. That is exactly where you want to just save the game before you start doing that. I have found that that's the one place where this game still crashes from time to time. No problem with that. It's still in early access. We know they're still working on the bugs, but just to save yourself a little bit of trouble, always save before you start making changes. So if you're going to add a switch in here, make sure to save before you do that. Okay guys, those are my 7 tips for upping your railway game in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. So if you've enjoyed that, please hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And why not join us on Discord, where we've got all kinds of discussions about problems just like these. See you next time. Bye-bye.